The air in the grand ballroom of the Beaumont Hotel was thick with the scent of expensive lilies and the murmur of polite conversation. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, casting a warm, golden glow on the impeccably dressed guests. My sister, Clara, radiant in a cream-colored gown, was clutching her fiancé Julian's hand, her smile a beacon of pure joy. It was her engagement party, a lavish affair orchestrated by Julian's parents, the Sterlings, a family whose wealth was as old and established as the oak trees lining their sprawling estate. I, Eleanor, stood a little apart from the main throng, a glass of champagne cool against my fingers, observing the scene with a detached amusement that belied the tremor of nerves deep within me. My dress, a simple but elegant navy blue, felt almost like a uniform compared to the glittering ensembles around me. I wasn't one for grand entrances or drawing attention, a trait honed by years in a profession that demanded discretion above all else. Tonight, however, discretion was proving to be a challenge, not because of my work, but because of my family. My father, Robert, a man whose heart was in the right place, but whose social graces often lagged behind, spotted me across the room. A wide, beaming smile stretched across his face, and he began to navigate the crowd toward me, dragging Mr. and Mrs. Sterling in his wake. My stomach did a nervous flip. I loved my father dearly, but his attempts at introducing me to new people often ended in either charming awkwardness or complete misrepresentation. Tonight, I had a sinking feeling it would be the latter. "Eleanor, darling!" he boomed, his voice carrying just a touch too far. He reached me, giving me a quick, enthusiastic hug that nearly dislodged my champagne flute. "Clara's sister! You remember Julian's parents, don't you? Mr. and Mrs. Sterling." He gestured expansively. Mr. Sterling, a man with shrewd eyes and a perfectly tailored suit, offered a polite, somewhat distant nod. Mrs. Sterling, a woman whose pearls looked like they had their own zip code, gave me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the kind of smile that assessed, categorized, and then subtly dismissed. "Of course, lovely to see you again," I replied, extending my hand. Their grip was firm but brief, almost perfunctory. I could feel their gaze lingering, evaluating. My dress, my posture, my very presence. I knew the drill. They were sizing me up, trying to place me within their carefully constructed social hierarchy. And then, my father, bless his well-meaning but utterly disastrous heart, decided to help. "So, Eleanor, darling," he boomed, puffing out his chest with a fatherly pride that was about to go spectacularly wrong. "She's really making her way in the world. Very independent. She delivers meal kits in a van." He finished with a flourish, as if announcing I had just discovered a cure for a rare disease. My smile froze. A phantom chill snaked down my spine, despite the warmth of the room. I felt the blood drain from my face, then rush back, hot with mortification. Meal kits? In a van? The words hung in the air, a stark, almost comical contrast to the opulent surroundings, the refined company, and the reality of my life. My father, in his infinite wisdom, had taken a passing comment I'd made years ago about briefly helping a friend with a local organic produce delivery service, a brief temporary gig during a gap year before I even considered my current career path, and elevated it to my life's calling. He'd probably heard delivery and van and combined it with the most innocuous, relatable thing he could think of. Mr. Sterling's polite nod faltered, replaced by a subtle arch of an eyebrow. Mrs. Sterling's pearl-adorned hand went to her throat, a tiny, almost imperceptible gesture, but one that spoke volumes. The warmth in her eyes, already fleeting, vanished entirely. A flicker of something akin to pity, mixed with a healthy dose of condescension, crossed her face. The silence that followed was not merely awkward, it was charged, heavy, and crushing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. Most of all, I wanted to disappear. The injustice of it burned. Here I was, Eleanor Vance, a woman who had worked tirelessly, sacrificed countless nights, and pushed her physical and mental limits to achieve a position of significant responsibility. I was a professional, a specialist in a field that demanded precision, discretion, and an unshakable resolve. And my father, with one clumsy sentence, had reduced me to a glorified delivery driver. For a split second, I considered correcting him. I imagined the words forming on my tongue. Actually, Dad, I coordinate emergency security protocols for high-profile government officials, including the Secretary of State, often involving complex logistical planning and on-the-ground threat assessment. But the words felt heavy, boastful, almost desperate in the face of their immediate judgment. Besides, how do you explain a career like mine in a casual cocktail conversation without sounding like a character from a spy novel? So I swallowed it. I swallowed the indignation, the pride, the years of hard work. I forced a tight, polite smile. It's fulfilling work, I managed, my voice a little too strained. My father, oblivious to the chasm he just opened, beamed at my supposed humility. The Sterlings, however, exchanged a look that spoke volumes. It was a look of confirmation, of a stereotype neatly boxed and filed away. The daughter of the family, clearly the less successful one, doing something so pedestrian. They quickly pivoted, their conversation becoming a flurry of questions directed at my father about Clara and Julian's wedding plans, about their shared interests, about anything but me. I became a ghost in my own conversation, relegated to the periphery, a forgotten detail. The champagne suddenly tasted flat, and the elegant room felt suffocating. I excused myself politely, citing a need for fresh air, and retreated to a quieter corner of the ballroom, observing the party from a safe distance. From my vantage point, I watched my father animatedly chatting, Clara laughing with Julian, and the Sterlings holding court. I saw the way their eyes occasionally flickered towards me, a fleeting glance of assessment, quickly dismissed. It was a familiar feeling, one I had encountered many times in my career, though usually from adversaries, not potential in-laws. Being underestimated was a constant in my line of work. It could even be an advantage. But tonight, it felt like a personal slight, a public humiliation delivered by the very person who should have been my biggest champion. I thought about my journey, the grueling training, the late nights studying intelligence reports, the simulated crisis scenarios that felt terrifyingly real, the pressure of knowing that lives, and sometimes national security, could depend on my quick thinking and meticulous planning. I remembered the satisfaction of a mission successfully executed, the quiet pride in a job well done. None of that mattered tonight. Tonight, I delivered meal kits in a van. As the evening wore on, the initial sting began to dull, replaced by a strange sense of calm. I realized that their perception of me wasn't my burden to carry. It was a reflection of their own narrow worldview, their own limitations in understanding success beyond a certain visible, tangible form of wealth or traditional profession. What they saw wasn't me. It was the simplified, palatable version my father had inadvertently presented and the prejudiced lens through which they chose to view it. And in that realization, there was a quiet power. I wouldn't correct them. Let them believe what they wanted. My dignity wasn't dependent on their approval. I found myself drifting back towards the main gathering, drawn by the music and the general hum of conversation. I saw Mr. Sterling step away from a small group, his phone pressed to his ear. He was a man who exuded control, a pillar of composure. But as I watched him, I noticed a subtle shift. His brow furrowed, his grip on the phone tightened. His voice, usually smooth and resonant, became clipped, urgent. He was speaking in hushed tones, but the words, or rather the fragments of words that reached me, were enough to pique my professional interest. Emergency protocols, Secretary of State's itinerary, threat assessment. My senses sharpened. My professional instincts, usually dormant during social events, flared to life. This wasn't a casual business call. This was something significant, something potentially critical. I saw Julian approach his father, concern etched on his face. "Dad, everything all right?" Mr. Sterling waved him off with an impatient hand, his eyes scanning the room, a frantic energy now radiating from him. He looked stressed, almost panicked. He ended the call abruptly, his face pale. He then did something completely out of character. He marched directly to my father, who was still chatting merrily, oblivious. "Robert, I need to ask you something vital," Mr. Sterling said, his voice tight with urgency, cutting through the pleasantries. "Your daughter, Eleanor, what exactly did you say her profession was?" My father, taken aback by the abruptness, stammered, "Oh, Eleanor, she delivers meal kits in a van. Very efficient, you know." He chuckled nervously, sensing the shift in mood, but not understanding its cause. Mr. Sterling's eyes, wide with dawning horror, swiveled to me. I was standing perhaps 15 feet away, a silent observer. His face, usually so composed, was a tableau of shock and utter disbelief. He took a hesitant step towards me, then another. The entire room seemed to quiet, drawn by the intensity of the moment. "Miss Vance," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I just received a call from a colleague at the State Department. There's been a developing situation. A critical security detail needs immediate coordination. They mentioned a top-tier specialist, someone named Eleanor Vance, who is currently the only one with the necessary clearances and expertise to handle this specific, highly sensitive emergency for the Secretary of State, who is, coincidentally, scheduled to be in this very city tonight." He paused, his breath catching in his throat. "They said you were unavailable, potentially at a family event. They were trying to reach you, but you're here, and you deliver meal kits?" The words hung in the air, echoing the absurdity of my father's earlier statement. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the faint clinking of cutlery from the kitchen. Every eye in the ballroom was on me. My father's jaw had dropped. Clara, who had known about my real job but respected my need for discretion, had her hand clapped over her mouth, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and dawning pride. I met Mr. Sterling's gaze. His face was a mixture of profound embarrassment, urgent need, and utter bewilderment. He had just publicly dismissed me, only to discover I was the very person he desperately needed. The irony was palpable. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice calm, clear, and steady, cutting through the thick tension. "While I appreciate my father's colorful description of my work, I assure you my professional responsibilities extend a little beyond organic produce. Yes, I am Eleanor Vance, and yes, I am currently coordinating emergency security for the Secretary of State, among other duties. I wasn't unavailable, I was simply enjoying my sister's engagement party." I offered a small, knowing smile that was devoid of malice but rich with quiet power. His face flushed a deep crimson. "My God," he whispered, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. I am so incredibly sorry. We had no idea. Your father said—" He trailed off, glancing at my father, who looked as if he wished the floor would swallow him whole. "Please, Miss Vance, can you help? They said it was urgent, a potential breach in the advance team's route." I took a deep breath, the shift from socialite to security professional instantaneous and seamless. "Give me your phone, Mr. Sterling," I commanded, my tone firm, authoritative. "I need to speak to your contact at the State Department. Tell them I'm on it. I'll need a quiet space, access to a secure line, and a full briefing on the developing situation. And perhaps," I added, my eyes flicking to my father, who was now staring at me with a mixture of awe and profound shame, "a little less meal kit delivery talk for the rest of the evening." He practically thrust his phone into my hand. I could feel the weight of every gaze in the room as I walked past them, my posture straight, my head held high. The Sterlings, initially so dismissive, now looked at me with a mixture of respect and acute embarrassment. My father stood frozen, a silent apology in his eyes. Clara gave me a small, proud nod. I found a quiet office, quickly assessed the situation, and began issuing commands, my voice low and precise, a stark contrast to the earlier polite chatter. The world of crystal chandeliers and polite smiles receded, replaced by the urgent reality of my profession. The incident was handled, the potential threat neutralized, all before the first dance of the evening. Later, as the party wound down, Mr. Sterling approached me again, his face still etched with residual shock and a genuine deference. "Miss Vance, I truly don't know how to apologize enough. Your father, we truly misunderstood. Your work is extraordinary. We were so incredibly rude, so dismissive. Please accept my deepest apologies, and thank you. You averted a serious incident tonight." I simply nodded, accepting his apology without further comment. My father, too, came to me, his eyes moist. "Eleanor, I am so sorry, sweetheart. I didn't know what to tell them. Your job is so complicated. I just wanted to simplify it. I didn't mean to make you sound—" He couldn't finish the sentence, his voice cracking. I reached out and squeezed his arm. "It's okay, Dad," I said softly. "I know you didn't mean any harm, but maybe next time, just Eleanor is in government security will suffice." He managed a weak smile, a flicker of understanding finally in his eyes. That night, amidst the lingering scent of lilies and the quiet hum of a party coming to an end, I learned a profound lesson. Being underestimated isn't a burden to fight against. It's a mirror that reflects other people's limitations, not mine. It's an opportunity, sometimes, for a truth to speak for itself, with far greater impact than any defensive explanation could ever achieve. My worth, my capabilities, my dignity, they were never dependent on the approval or understanding of others. They were simply, undeniably, mine. And in the end, the truth, when it chose to reveal itself, was the most powerful form of revenge imaginable.